Okay, episode 5, the Book of Divisions. This is Macy's dinner where she announced she's going to be hosting the celebrity pickleball, right?
Yeah, I think it's both her book deal, which
That's
led
what
to a confession box, but also said, I'm doing this pickleball thing, you're all invited.
I'm really over the truth box, the confession box. Yeah, spoiler alert, it happens later. Not in this episode, I think, but like later in the season. And I'm like, can we stop? Can we please? But anyway, someone writes, I think Jen is fake. And then they put I thought this part was funny. I think was it Taylor? She's like with a smiley. Like,
She
like
shows her.
it was emphasized. She's fake with a smiley. The irony of that. Like, can we be honest? Like, it's ironic. But anyway, so Jen starts crying at the dinner.
It's a
Uh,
strange scene to me because it's the cliffhanger. So in many ways, I was like, "Ooh, we're gonna start with now. We're gonna talk about this." But the dinner just ends. They're just like, "Jen's fake." She cries. All right, well. And Whitney's like, "Don't forget my baby shower." Like it was very abrupt, I thought.
yeah, they're like, okay. And Macy was like, well, it did put a damper on the mood. Um, Taylor thinks that Jesse or Demi wrote it. Yeah, Jen continues. I'm not laughing at Jen. Jen is continuing to cry in the parking lot to Whitney and Miranda, and they are they are forming their own little group, their own little subgroup.
Yeah.
Uh,
I thought it was interesting because I didn't watch ahead. So now I'm into episodes I've only seen once.
mhm.
And that's very exciting. But I was kind of surprised to hear a couple of things where Taylor's saying it's probably Demi or Jess, which feels obvious, like,
Yeah.
who's having fights with Jen right now. And then she kind of makes this assertion that if it's not Demi or Jess, then it's someone that they have brainwashed to think a certain thing. So I thought that was just kind of interesting too, that Taylor's just looking at what's going on, and her thing was like, if it's not them, then it is not somebody who's just thinking independently, but it's somebody who's like joining in their fight,
Yes. I
which
thought that was
actually probably is accurate, I guess.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, like, what has Jen actually done to anyone? Like, I get, like, you've heard me, like, previous episodes. I've been like, I think some of how she responds to conflict or challenging, like, interpersonal situations is not the best. And I think she acknowledges that too, like, at different points that she struggles with that. But, like, what has she done actually? I'm, like, very confused as to what they are upset with her about.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. The dynamics are going to be interesting. And they unfold a little bit throughout the episode, but it isn't like there's a bombshell. It's all just sort of strange.
Yes. Oh, I have so many. Yeah, I have a lot of. I'm gonna say I actually enjoyed this episode and the next one. Like
Hmm.
I enjoyed it. But the next scene, Miranda and Whitney are going to some store, which I had a lot of questions about this store. So in my like early midlife crisis, where I'm like, do I want to keep doing this job forever? What would another career be? I mean, none of this is going to happen. Like I'm keeping my career path. Like will continue
That's
on
probably good.
same trajectory, yeah. But sometimes I'm like, you know what? I want to open up a store. None of this again is going to happen. But I was like, what store is this? There are baby toys, there are plants, like lovely live plants. There were candy jars. I was really trying to figure out what this store was and what their who are they? Who are their patrons? Anyway, it looked like a cool store.
It's
So,
true. They're there to plan the baby shower, but you're right. It reminds me of stores that are in the downtown of my town, which is really cute. Like very eclectic, super overpriced,
very
locally owned, maybe even locally-ish sourced. I mean, that seems unlikely, but
a dream of mine. I will own a store like that that is just pointless and overpriced. It looked like it sounded like who was it? Miranda or Whitney? One of them learned about perennials.
I I thought this conversation was fun. Look, I don't know anything, but it was still making me laugh. What did you want to say about it?
They die. They die and they come back and they're like, "Oh, I need that. I need that." That's like a metaphor for my life right now. It's like, "What? What's happening?" Like, okay. But yeah, perennials are great. Like I love them.
I
They're
mean, to, am I wrong in like my understanding is um Well, I guess, sure, yeah, there's all kinds of plants, but my understanding is like it's pretty normal for plants to die in the winter, right? And then you have plants that don't die in the winter, and you talk about those, like, oh, you plant these and they come back every year, whatever those are called.
Those are perennials.
Those are perennials. Okay.
Yes.
Like, I
Like
don't
they
know,
don't
right?
actually like die, but the flowers die, and you have to like trim them back or whatever for some of them.
So I'm just cracking up because to me this feels like a normal concept, right? Like leaves fall off trees and dies, the trees stay, like whatever. And she's just like, these are plants that are designed to die. Right? It's just sort of designer plants to make me feel. And I was just sort of thinking, like,
They
I don't
come
know what. It's fine.
from the grave, they return these plants. I thought it was funny. Whitney is trying to get back in to Mom Talk. She sends a group chat. She wants to do something special for Macy at the pickleball event. Have you played pickleball?
So funnily enough,
Uh-huh.
big segue. In high school gym class, my first high school gym class, 10th grade for me, they taught us to play pickleball. And there was a small group of people who became my friends who were like, that's a funny word, pickle, pickle, pickle. And this was like early in the semester. So then when he saw me in the hall, he would say, pickle. And then his friend, who later became my friend, was like, why are you calling that guy pickle? And so they started to call me pickle. So I have a
Oh,
nickname in from high school, pickle, because of pickleball, but I actually don't recall if I played. I mean, they must have taught us.
that's really funny.
Yes,
You
I
don't
have comic. So he was like a comic book artist, and he drew these pictures reimagining me as the pickle in his Batman parody called Fat Man, very progressive. And I was the Riddler character, Pickle. So, anyway, all of that to be said, pickleball seems to be very popular these days, and and I have a deep connection to it, but I don't play.
I've never played. But I know many people that it's like the new hip couples thing to do. Like you go play ping
I mean, it makes sense. It's like tennis, which I
pong.
also don't play, but it's sort of like cooler than ping pong or even racquetball, maybe. It's somewhere in there.
Yes. So
This scene, so my 14-year-old son has a thing where he has to leave the room if we're watching a movie and somebody's like going to give a speech or do something just super embarrassing in public or cringy. He like leaves. He can't handle it.
vicarious
I
embarrassment.
guess so. And this scene reminded me of it a little. They're like giggling, but they're like, let's send a group text and see what happens. And then I love that it shows everyone seeing the text, not answering their phone, having their opinions. And then Miranda sends a text to be supportive, and they're just laughing, laughing. And I'm like, ooh, this is awkward.
So Taylor then it looks like she's going to maybe her parents' house. She's bringing her baby. Her baby is so cute. She but she talks to her mom and her sister. Like this is like the bulk of the
Yeah.
conversation that occurs there. She I thought it was really funny. So the TikTok video that she posted, which
Oh,
is
Dakota cleaning and
flowers and he's cleaning, she's kind of having like a lovey look on her face. And they were like, what was the point of that? Are you guys back together? Because that looks like you're back together. And she's like, it's just a video. It's just a video. I'm like, "Oh, okay. Like, is this willful ignorance? I'm not sure because I think everyone knows, like, you can assume what people would read, like how after that video, like how people would view your relationship status as maybe changing. And if that's not intentional, and it's just a video, I think that might confuse people, but I thought it was funny. Life lately.
it's true. I found, I mean, in many ways, I found this to be the least offensive way her family has like shown up, and where Taylor was maybe the least reasonable in the conversation, even though it was fine, but it was one of those where I was sort of like, it wasn't all the same old themes. And what I found in this conversation from Taylor was like what you're saying, it's just a video. And then when she goes on to say, we're still having sex, and she's like, yeah, but it's just sex. I feel not like she's just like sort of defending it as if like this doesn't harm me at all. And I was like, there's somebody else involved. Like, I'm not, like, that's fine, I guess, but I didn't feel like they really explored the concern or that Taylor wasn't getting the concern. If she's really thinking, like, given everything that's going on and we're still sleeping together regularly and that's fine, I was like, oh, maybe you should think about it a little more.
Yeah, I thought that too. She did say that her sister had some good advice.
hmm I think maybe the reason I found this conversation from mom and sister more palatable is one, I think the sister actually is a little smarter, more understanding. She's a little more religious, so she starts with like, "Y'all need Jesus" or whatever. But the sister I think is slightly more level-headed. But I think in this time there's less of y'all need to work it out and to get together, and like this uncertainty isn't good, which is what we've been saying. So I was like, I think they're getting to the point where like this the limbo is not good, at least, instead of just you all need to be together and work it out.
Which makes me wonder what happened to get from like yelling at the outdoor lunch or dinner gathering, whatever it was, to
Mm,
this point where they're saying, yeah, I think maybe you guys need to kind of not do that if you're not together and then like focus on yourself, work on yourself. I think the sister is very level-headed. She does seem more religious, but she doesn't come across as judgmental like
right.
her dad did. Like I thought,
Right.
yeah. So.
Yeah, if anything, her sister, I think, is giving the message of like church and religion and Jesus are there to help and support you if you like lean into that. Like if she's offering it in that way, not in a like you're dumb and you're doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, I agree.
I have written with an exclamation part. Think of the baby. So I do think that was where the sister came in, and I thought it was funny because I think we talked about this in a previous episode where people are like, "What would you tell your client?" And that can feel like a little bit patronizing and annoying. But it isn't always a bad therapeutic intervention or way to think about things and process is like, okay, so I talk to myself this way, but would I talk to others this way?
That's
I'm
a
just
great intervention.
I'm justifying my behavior, but if it were my daughter, would I think differently? I think it helps people. I do think it can help people like shift their perspective. And if you're in therapy looking for help, or you're talking to your sister and you're like, what should I do? Then that kind of brainstorming, yeah, great intervention.
It's also like an exercise in self-compassion. So like Kristen Neff is sort of like the queen of self-compassion research, and she has people do like engage in that exercise. Like think about like if you were to write down your behaviors, just completely objective, you're real about any consequences, but there's no judgment whether these actions are good or bad. It just is. And then also think about what you would tell someone you love dearly, a close friend or family member going through this. How would you comfort them? What would you say to them? Versus like the other mom that was also like low key criticizing my professionalism.
Right.
Versus like coming from a very compassionate like stance of I mean, what would you, if you had like a close friend that was, it was mowing the lawn. So that's the
I
other
mean,
thing.
it's stupid. You weren't sort of like, I can't figure out how to not be so mad at
Right.
my lawnmower. You were just like, life, right? You know?
I was like trying to be funny and self-deprecating and it failed.
That
It
is my
did.
least favorite thing when I'm being self-deprecating and somebody, and counselors do this a lot. I'm friends with a lot of counselors, so it's like, it's a
Yes.
problem. But when I'm being self-deprecating and instead of laughing, which is the appropriate response, I get this sort of like,
Mm.
are you okay? And I'm like, that is not the right response.
Yes. I have encountered that. I mean, like the people in my life that I'm close to get it and they do not respond, but other therapists, psychologists that I know that are lovely people, lovely
Sure.
humans, but I will be like, oh man, my mother-in-law or whatever, like back in the day. Oh, that sounds really hard. I'm like, I'm not trying to make this a serious conversation. I'm trying to like make light of, humor, coping, whatnot. So yeah.
Yeah. Or worse, if I'm being self-deprecating and they're like, no, don't say that about yourself. I'm like,
Oh, that is
listen,
true.
no, nobody thinks more of me than me. You do not. I'm just giving you,
I make
I'm
you
giving you an
comfortable.
accurate thing. I don't need to be reassured.
You're great. You are great.
Don't say that about you. I'm like, I'm good. Don't worry. I'm good and I'm also chronically late or whatever. It's fine.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So the next scene is Whitney talking. Who is she? Was she talking to Macy about the videos with that Michaela's? Yeah, she's talking to Macy
Mm.
on the phone. She's upset because Michaela is making these TikTok videos that she feels are directed negatively towards her. And
They seem to
make
be. I didn't watch them carefully, but they are, right?
I this was my second time watching the episode. I did not, so I didn't watch the video closely this time. Um, but I think the first time I watched it, I thought, okay, like you could read between the lines. Who is she referring to? Yes,
Yeah.
it's pretty clear. Yeah,
Yeah,
she's like,
it's definitely about her.
yeah. hmm And she's upset that Macy was in the video. What do you think of Macy's response? She was like, I mean, I really, we're huge Macy fans here. But she was like, I didn't really know like what the videos were about. You know, it's just like we're being in it. I'm in a video. I'm being included in a video. I don't know what she's going to write in the caption. And it did make me wonder what the process is for these people, like how much, because if someone's like, "Hey Sean, do you want to do a video with me?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, okay. Well, what are we doing?" Like, "Well, we're gonna do this," and we're all rolling our eyes and like doing something like this. I'd be like, "Well, what is it about? Why are we doing that?"
Right.
Like, how much dialogue happens leading up to this? Do they all want to understand? Or are they just jumping in regardless? I don't know. I did kind of wonder that though. Like, does Macy know that the videos did Macy know the videos were about Whitney, or is she just like, yeah, I'll join, and I don't know what we're doing or who this is aimed towards, but here I am.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. They have to worry about their reputation, so to jump into something without knowing what it was seems unlikely, but they could have been a little bit evasive or something in saying it, or just sort of saying do it anyway and it's going to be fine. We're all in it. So maybe Macy took the risk. But I think Whitney was even sort of like, yeah, but once you knew the first one, you kind of knew that could be what the videos were about. You kept doing them. So I don't know if this is another example that I saw with the men around the Chippendales thing, and I'm seeing everyone where everyone's just like, I thought it just feels very. I'm like, are you all intelligent people though? Like, why aren't you asking questions or following up or just going with? "Nah, they want the plausible deniability. I think when they're saying that kind of thing.
Is it a situation where they just it's like I just kind of want to this is for my career. I'm going to jump in the video and like I don't ask questions or it doesn't matter to me because it's separate from our relationship.
Yeah.
And so I make a comment. I don't remember if it was this episode or the next episode like in my notes, but it pertains to the whole season so far. So it's not spoiling anything that like they talk about mom talk as if mom talk is solely just a group of women that are friends. And then sometimes they do say, but it is a business too. And I think because of that, the lines are blurred so much that they're like, well, but you, and this comes up, I think, later, but like, well, you are doing these things to promote the business or advance your career in some way, make more money, but it seems at the cost of our friendship. And yeah, so they talk about like mom talk, like you did that to me and we're friends, and but they're not just friends, it's a business, and it's very confusing.
Yeah. I'll probably comment on this in different ways throughout the episode, but I was such a Whitney hater in the first season, and I don't want to let go of that. But Whitney is, in many ways, a different character this season. It's like at the end of the first season, she knew or she thought she could get away with being a jerk, and then she learned that she couldn't, and it wasn't good for her. And so now she's coming back very humble and um, I don't know, she's sort of like accepting that and trying to be all nice. And I find it both fake, but part of me as I'm watching this episode and the next one, I'm like, I mean, but she's doing it, right? Like if you're like, if you want to be in Montauk, you got to do this, and now she's doing it. And I'm like, should I give her points for that? Are your feelings about Whitney changing as you watch this? I'm just curious.
So yes, I enjoyed watching Whitney the first season. Like I and so that is still present. Like there is something about her that I find to be she's great for TV, whether she is the villain or not. I just kind of enjoy watching her. But I also love a good redemption arc, and I am a sucker for the underdog. And so it doesn't matter if they were like the villain last season, they're now the underdog. I like will generally root for the underdog. I do feel like it's complex. And I think this comes in more next episode where my thoughts become more complex. So as of now, where I'm at in this episode, I'm rooting for her. I want her to get back in with the other ladies. I want her to be a part of mom. I'm rooting. I'm rooting for her in
Okay.
this. I don't stop rooting for her in the next episode, but it does make me wonder a little bit more about like intentions. And I just feel like it's complex. I think we talked about this with Miranda um earlier in earlier episodes where like the duality can exist. Like I think
Hmm.
that she maybe is humbled a little bit about what, after the response she got, and she's not included in things. That always hurts. She's coming in, from with a different angle. I do think part of it is genuine, but I also think it's motivated by, that desire to expand her business and success and all of that.
Sure. Yeah, she's leaving money on the table if she just walks away. Well, I'll think about that because I notice this part of me that doesn't want to be forgiving. And part of that comes from the idea of like, too many people who do bad things, people just forget and they don't face consequences. But it's not like Whitney does such a bad thing. It was just like social stuff, right? She wasn't a terrible person. I do like redemption arcs also, but I do like them more in fictional characters because then it's cleaner. It's like, oh, okay. The writers have just decided that we can like them again, and we don't have to like really worry about if they've changed or not. The writers can say like they've changed.
Yeah, I like very different, but so I went undergrad, I went to University of Florida, and then I got my master's at Florida State, and
Hmm.
they are rivals. And it has ebbed and flowed, which it has changed which team is better, and they both have been good at very different times. But I would always root so they always play a game every year right after Thanksgiving, and over the past like 10 15 years. I've always just I've like rooted for the team that sucked. Like,
Hmm.
and which makes no sense to
That's
me. And
fun.
I would
No, that makes
vote for
sense.
but yeah,
It's
so
more exciting. It's like you don't go to Vegas and, root for the casino.
true. Yes.
You
Yeah.
don't. They're good. They won.
They go to Pilates, Jesse and Demi do a Pilates reformer class.
Now, I liked Demi last time, and I had good things to say about Jess's directness, but they're losing me this season. Um, Not necessarily because of this. This will come up later as they try to talk, but they're just kind of all operating on different assumptions and even like values or whatever, because they're having this conversation that goes on for a while, and I feel like they are talking each other into why they're so right to be like dragging Jen.
Mhm.
And it's kind of just a strange exercise because there isn't, like you said, Jen didn't do anything so horribly wrong. It isn't like they're talking about, oh, we see a pattern, but it isn't like a malicious pattern toward you. It's just sort of like Jen's just kind of a little bit, dicey on the details.
It feels a little mean girl, and I think I
Hmm.
don't love that. And I had that same reaction about Whitney last season. Some of her behaviors were mean girl. And
Hmm.
I think it's okay to not like, you don't have to like everyone. You don't have to show up for everyone. But when we're starting to do things that feel intentionally hurtful, that's like I don't love watching that. And that's where I feel like this is kind of going. So Jesse is hosting. They're not going to go they thought it was weird that Whitney invited them to her baby shower.
Sure, because they're still on bad terms with her.
Mhm. So Jesse's going to host a hibachi dinner the night of the baby shower for the people not going. And I was like, you don't have to do that. Like, you don't have to be like, and we're having a party over here. Like, I
No.
just don't think that that's necessary.
It's same as the baby blessing, right? They're like, well, and then we're gonna have our sinners party. If you were really thinking hard about like the impact, then you might consider how that timing might not be the best.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I think what they're saying is fair is like this will come up next episode too more, which is Whitney has not made right what she did. She just came back and acted nice, and too often people confuse that with an apology, but it isn't an apology. And I think they're like, she hasn't really actually addressed that. So that's both fair and why they're not going and why they thought it was strange that she invited them, I suppose.
I don't think that they need to go to the baby shower. They don't have to be friends with Whitney. It's just like, I think it's everything with Whitney and Jen, and just that is their whole story arc. so far anyway. I did think this part was interesting. So Demi says that Zach called her. I find this whole dynamic to be very fascinating, and I don't feel like they go into it enough. So Zach is confused about the whole truth of the Chippendales thing, and how much did Jen know? How much did she not know? But then they mentioned the Ben Affleck thing, so I was sort of confused about this. Are they saying that Jen was saying they are related to Ben Affleck, knowing that that's not true? Like, it sounds like they were saying that she was intentionally lying about that, and that Zach is kind of feeding into that narrative low key to them, or maybe off camera to other people. I mean, they did have that conversation, the two of them, where he was like, I mean, Jen, that's not true. And she's like, your family told me that. Your family told me that. And so I have a lot of questions about the truth of this. I really want to know what was.
This thing specifically is actually for me the darkest mark on Jen's reputation with me personally, because I can, and I've sort of like given her a lot of explanations and like been very, I think, compassionate toward behaviors to explain them away in ways that aren't so bad.
Yeah.
But it is so strange to me to see the direct conversation about like this is not a true thing clarified, and she doesn't want to let it go. And so even though I think the way Demi and Jess are interpreting behavior and talking about it is not very kind or compassionate or sort of like considering the entire context, in this particular one it is weird. It's a weird hill to kind of die on, or to not let go of, or to not accept, because she kind of keeps having that's what I was always told. It's like, okay, but what are you being told right now today? Like, are we ready to shift away from that narrative? It's very odd to me the way Jen is holding on to proximity to fame. I have no idea. She's
It
famous.
Yes, but like Ben Affleck's an A-list celebrity,
Sure.
so we're,
Yeah.
ranky. But yeah, I like don't know if she said so if there's this idea. Well, so part of me was wondering, was it a I don't think she's lying in that she heard that from someone in the family. But
Sure.
how did she hear it?
Right.
Like, was it like, oh, you guys, your last name is Affleck. Yeah, we think we might be related to Ben Affleck. Like that seems very clearly like silly and likely untrue the way I'm saying it. Was it presented that way? Did someone actually say we're related to Ben Affleck? Like those nonverbals are important.
Well, it would be interesting though, right? Because if people were saying it in a way where it seemed obvious it wasn't true and she was believing it, then that would make some sense where Zach's just sort of like, yeah, but like it like whatever. If somebody's saying it seriously, it kind of doesn't matter though. While we were in doctoral school, I was always voluntold to give the tour, right? When people would come in to look at the program, and I would give the tour. I was never trained to give the tour. I had no idea about the university, so I would walk people around campus, and I told them so many lies. I told them people's ashes are in these urns, and I said somebody drowned in the fountain. I told so many lies on those tours year after year. When somebody found out that I had been lying, it was just like, ah, yeah. And then they stopped believing it, I presume, because they're like, oh, he lied to us. That would make sense too. It's like, oh, yeah, my uncle says that to everyone. It's a lie. She could be like, ah, wow, what a jerk. I was lied to. It's just none of that is happening. None of the like, let's get to the truth now and her taking it in. It's very like, in what way was it delivered? Where she's like, no, one of the family members actually knows you're all wrong, and I know that we're related. It's a weird dynamic.
Well, it's probably pretty embarrassing to say either way for her. Like either, yeah, the family jokes about it in a way that likely that's not true, and I just wanted to say that to be cool.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's probably
that's
the
embarrassing.
truth and embarrassing.
Yeah, like that would be hard to admit. Like I just wanted to impress people. Or if you're like, I misinterpreted it, I was wrong. Like that feels like maybe the safest
Yeah,
move.
yeah,
But yeah. So
whatever. It's funny that it's still coming up because I'm like, ooh, they are not putting this to bed, and I think it's because of Jen.
no.
So the other thing about this conversation that it felt repetitive, but I was trying to look at it in a different way. Zach is trying so hard to get her to give up mom talk, and it has annoyed me because I have associated it with him. I mean, I still think this is true. He's not listening to her. She clearly cares about it. She even says, like, I chose mom talk over my marriage, and now they're treating me this way, which is all like really fair. But never in a conversation about like I don't know what to do about mom talk has Zach said anything remotely close to, I hate to see it feel bad for you in these ways, but I see that it helps. That's a tough decision. What are you going to do? Like, there's just never any sort of like,
Mhm.
I can see that you're really weighing this because mom talk means a lot to you. It's always like, you should leave it. They make you feel bad, all of those things. So this time I was sort of like, okay, you know what? If Zach were a good husband, it's possible he would be saying these things, that he's seeing her get hurt by it and all of those. But she really does need to hear the acknowledgement of like, it's a difficult decision. It is a thing that she has helped build and that she's a part of and she has hopes for. And he just wants her out of it so bad. So I had mixed feelings. Zach doing the same thing where I'm like, he doesn't know how to have a conversation where he isn't transparently trying to get his desire met, which is like, you leave mom talk. That's what I want. And so he just pushes that full steam ahead.
Yeah, I agree. It is a hard decision. It's her business. She's worked really hard. She supports the family. And so similarly, like if the roles were reversed and it was the male, that was his job, that's how he provided for any job. This is how he provided for his family. He brought in the majority of the income, but he's super stressed and maybe having panic attacks about it and like really upset. Like, I don't think it's viewed the same way or maybe responded in the same way. Like, well, you just need to leave. You just need to quit. You just need to quit. Well, okay, but like, what are we going to do financially then?
Yeah.
And that's a hard decision. And
And if the answer is, I make enough for both of us, or my parents, or whatever, like, you'll be taken care of, Jen is not currently happy in the marriage. And so that's scary to be like, oh, okay, I will get rid of my opportunity to be independent then
Mhm.
and turn it over to you. That probably doesn't feel safe to her.
Yeah. Yeah, like I'm just gonna stop working. Like this is how, yeah, what if we don't? Although she's pregnant and I feel like yeah, that changes a lot too.
I'll say more about this, but very clearly the pregnancy is a dynamic that is stirring her up big, and I think it's because she's unhappy. And so instead of being an answer of like, I guess we should make it work, it doesn't seem to be giving her more answers. It seems to be like, you need to make a decision because of the impact of, having another baby.
It's sad. The Jen situation's really sad to me.
It is. I mean, her and Taylor and Dakota. It's like it's not ideal to have a baby with somebody when the relationship is like not in that good place. Like that's a stressful circumstance to be pregnant instead of just like, yay, we want this, we planned it. Like, there's levels of stress that are going to make that different. This is clearly very stressful.
Yeah. That they are talking about it, but Jen says she's upset that she chose mom talk over Zach and they screwed her over.
Yeah.
Um,
Zach
and
specifically says, "You have me and the kids. Do you really want mom talk?" And I'm like, dude, you don't get it.
That's what I mean, though, about the weird, like this. We're not talking about a friend group. This is a career. This is how she supports the family and her mother. And so, like, well, I don't, we're talking about it like it's just a group of friends, cut them off, whatever. Sure, that makes sense. If your friends are causing panic attacks and depression, like, we should reevaluate those relationships. But with work, their like financial status, her livelihood, her mother's well-being, I get like, yeah, that would be a really hard, I mean, even if it were a friend group, that's a hard decision, but
It is, but a comment that would make more sense is, "Oh, you already have like all of those residuals from your modeling career that happened
yeah.
before. Do you need mom talk?" That would be accurate, right? You have income from here. Do you need this income? Not, you have your husband and kids. Do you really need friends? Like that, that's still not a good response. You don't need friends. You have your family. Oh, and it's you, Zach. So
Yes,
maybe
yes,
I do need, maybe you're making my argument for me.
I did think so. Jen, he was like, what's the point of this or something, and she was like, well, we're trying to influence the world, and I did find myself having a reaction like,
I
well,
want, I wanted to ask you because I do, I mean, the message of we're trying to modernize Mormon women does feel empowering, but do you think, can you name an influencer who is influential? Like, what is your take? When the word influencer popped up, I still only follow people I know on Instagram. So I'm just curious what you think about influencers.
I'm gonna say there is one influencer that well, one that comes to mind first. I'm sure that I have others. And she does a lot of body positivity stuff. Her account is the Birds Papaya, Sarah Nicole Landry. And she's had a handful of kids, and her body has really changed. And she has a lot of stretch marks and loose skin. And she would be considered plus size. And I find her stuff to be really inspiring. Um, and I enjoy looking at her content as like a good reminder about what body positivity means and showing gratitude for our bodies, even if other people are critical of that
Yeah,
body.
that sounds awesome.
And so I find that to be really inspirational. Not, but the and I do follow some influencers, but a lot of the stuff that I find to be helpful are like other psychologists that are like
Hmm.
influencer I don't know, like is that a thing? Like they're like psychologists that have a big online social media presence and like parenting like helpful parenting tips, and I find that to be more helpful. I am not, but again, this I am not their audience. Like I am not sexually repressed. And so I mean I say that like, and then I said like that seems to be
Right.
like where what they're going for, like women in particular that feel like they can't express their sexuality. That doesn't speak to me as a need that I have in my life. And so it's not, yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I have mixed feelings. When influencer first came out, in the context that I first started hearing about it, it was coupled with people who were like on private jets, faking, right? But taking pictures of themselves, vacations and all of that. And to me, I'm like, I don't know that anybody, I don't know. I don't know who watches that and is influenced as much as they're just kind of like jealous in the way we read celebrity magazines and stuff. And I'm like, are you an influencer or are you just like another lifestyles of the rich and famous avenue
Yeah.
or something like that?
I guess too, I don't know, like I haven't watched their videos enough to
Hmm.
I mean, maybe if I was in a community where divorce is really frowned upon and it's judged heavily, and I'm watching their videos and like some of these women have been divorced and they're starting
Hmm.
over, maybe that like would give me permission to feel okay about a decision that I'm wanting to make, but other people are more critical. I could see that being helpful,
Sure.
but some of the other videos, I feel like it's a little attention seeking too. And so like the dances and they're cutesy, but I'm not inspired by it either. But I have not looked at all of their videos close enough to really get I feel like I can't really comment
Yeah.
on, yeah, the
I mean, yeah,
entirety.
I feel more open to when people describe themselves as content makers, and that can be anyone. Like sometimes that's like porn stars, or just people who like give instructional videos, or like whatever. Anything could be a content maker, and I think that's an honest sort of like I'm making content. You want to watch content? I'm making content. That's what it is.
Mhm.
But anytime I'm watching anything where people are kind of doing the trendy like whatever, it's just like you pick your hot person
Great.
or the person you like to watch do the thing and you're like, you're the person I like to watch do the thing. I'm not influenced, I'm just like attracted or impressed or I like your style or something I feel, which I don't know. I guess that's influential.
I don't know. And I say this like I feel this feels judgmental, and maybe I need to process that and think about it. But like when I think about my daughter who's 5, do I want her growing up and watching those videos and feeling inspired by them? I don't think so. Like that is not really what I'm hoping for. And part
Yeah.
of it is I think the aesthetic that they have, like they have a lot of makeup and the
An
plastic surgery
expensive aesthetic.
and like this like very long like flowing hair. They're all so stunning, so beautiful. They're very thin. Um and I just think that and again, maybe this isn't fair to say, but it looks like they are promoting a beauty standard that I don't
Hmm.
feel is attainable for many people, that's just not what, typical people look like.
Yeah.
And so if you are a little girl that's like, that's what I want to do, that's what I want to look like, I don't feel like that's very healthy. And again, this is just me commenting from the periphery. I've not watched I've seen a handful of videos, but they do kind of lead with their sexuality, which you go girl. Listen, like I love that.
Yeah.
But in terms of like what I hope my child is following and inspired by, I don't know that that's what I want. So
Yeah.
a different perspective.
Yeah. It's tricky. Like, I understand that some of my cultural upbringing probably makes me a little bit of a prude when it comes to certain things, So, like, there might come a place where I'm like, I don't know if that's the best. And it's not necessarily coming from like, I'm not sure that's psychologically healthy as much as I'm sort of like, oh, in my day, like I'm probably just having a reaction from my cultural values. But I do think that there's pretty good evidence to show that when you really are getting your self-worth from an audience, that that's not going to be good for you either. And so, like, the duality of your self-worth is going to come from both your audience and then like these beauty standards are what we're promoting. Because something that was really challenging cultural norms and really bringing everything in the 21st century would be like a lot of bodies and a lot of body types and a lot of differences instead of, several clones with slight model variations.
Yeah. Yeah. Like what were the Pilates class when Jessie was like, I work out like twice a year and her body is sick, and
Right. Well, but apparently she's like doing sexual cardio day in and day out.
I
She
made
makes
it.
sure to say.
Yeah. I don't think that that's how you keep in shape. I kind of hate when people say that. They're like, well, I'm burning a lot of calories in the bedroom. Like, what are you guys doing? Like, and for how long? Like, is it longer than 10 minutes? Is it longer than 15 minutes? Like, what are we doing
Is there a
that
pull-up bar in there?
qualifies for like the American Heart Association recommends like X amount of cardiovascular. Are we doing that? What are we doing? Are we standing on our heads? I don't know. It just feels, I kind of hate when people, and on reality TV, people love to say
Oh,
that,
of course. Yeah. Yeah.
which feels a little braggy. I sort of feel like the people that don't talk about their sex life, like on TV, in like they're coupled up in some way, they're married or not, they have a partner. When they brag about their sex, I'm like, oh yeah, no, it's the person who's not bragging that's like probably having a really good time. Like every all that time in the bedroom, just don't take it. Like, they're not really buying as much. So yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, I
Okay.
think I'm avoiding the next scene because it goes so badly. Jen
Oh,
decides to meet with Jesse one on one because she's like, when they get together, Demi and Jesse, they'll just gang up on me or feed off each other. So she tries to meet with Jesse. It goes so bad.
I know it goes really bad. What did you think though about the Jen? I saw this on Instagram before I even watched any of the episodes. The scene where Jen was like, I was raised in the hood, and Zach was like, calm down. You were born in Provo, Utah. I wanted to ask you about that because I don't know anything about Utah or Provo, Utah. And it doesn't mean that in other, like, there can be like, cities or nice areas within that are like of a lower SES. That's fine.
Sure.
But I was curious what you thought as someone who's maybe is more familiar with Utah.
I don't know. I really don't know. He said she was born in Provo, and then she said yes, born in Provo, raised in the hood. So my first thought that would make that more legitimate sentence would be, did you move away to East LA and then come back? Or yeah, is it like you're saying, like you just went to a part of Utah that felt more like the hood? I don't know. I have said in previous episodes I grew up on the west side in Salt Lake City, which was considered lower SES for sure. And if there was a hood, it would be over there. Although I think more downtown Salt Lake inner city probably had even more kind of things like, visible homelessness and stuff like that. That I don't really know what constitutes the hood in Utah. So I'm not sure. But I mean, Jen Affleck is like a Latina woman, lower SES. So like maybe she grew up in what to her felt like rougher than what she's used to now. And I have no idea what that means, but I don't picture that she was like brandishing a switchblade in high school for protection or any of those things. I, I don't know.
Yeah, I was curious about that. Yeah, and I mean she probably has well, I was gonna say she maybe has a different childhood than some of the others. They all have their own trauma. It seems like they've shared in different ways, but
Hmm.
anyway, I was sort of curious. I was like, I don't know anything about Provo, Utah, but
Yeah. So Jen goes into this conversation like that, right? Like sort of like maybe empowered and not too timid, but I don't know. She's navigating it strangely. I think they both did a bad job, and it comes down to like they're not actually talking about the same things.
wait, Jen and
And Jess.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jen's mistake here, and again, I feel like she was a little bit like heightened and on camera and all of those things, but to me, her mistake was she kind of tried to present herself early on and sort of say like, I felt like it was this, and this, but she very early was like, it makes me question your character, and then Jessie couldn't hear anything after that because she was
Of
like,
course.
that's too low, and so
Yeah.
now I'm just gonna like fight and be mean, and so that as soon as that happened, I was like, oh, there, it's out the window. The conversation is gone, which is why
Yeah.
it's hard to have an unmediated conversation.
Yeah, it's better to, I think that some people I've observed feel like a productive conversation might start off with something like that. Like, well, you were just being awful, rather than, like
Right.
I'm really hurt by this, and I kind of want to talk about where you're coming from. But yeah, when she said, I question your character, Jess then kind of laughs a little bit like, oh, okay, let's talk about your
What about
character.
your character? It keeps coming back to, and I don't know who to believe or what to think about this, and that's why figuring it out probably isn't productive because they need to figure out what to do now with their relationship. But it keeps coming back to this thing where Jen sort of claims some level of ignorance about Chippendales. Jesse and Demi's idea is that she really doesn't deserve to claim that, right? So, like, whatever she feels like she didn't know, they're blaming Jen for not probably assuming that it would go as far as it did, not informing Zach enough, telling Zach things like, I didn't know when she knew. So that's what Jen's being accused of, and I think those are sort of fair, but I
Mhm.
don't know what to make of them because they've never really sat down and like talked about it. Because we do have footage of her saying to Zach, "There's going to be Chip and Dales. Are you ready?" And he's like, "I'll be a good sport." So like, it's not like,
Oh, really? I didn't remember that. I thought it was
yeah,
completely like he had no idea.
no, yeah, he did.
Really?
She told him that as they walked in. It sounds like what they didn't know is that there would be an actual Chippendales dancer, and that they would be grinding on her.
Yeah.
And so there are details in there, which Jess admits there was some surprise. So to me, it's very odd because I can see both of their perspectives. Where Jesse is like, I can't believe you didn't expect the level that it went to and are making a big deal out of it. And Jen is sort of like, you didn't tell me the whole truth. I think if she's being more honest, she could have been even more honest with Zach or more decisive with them to sort of say, like, what is this going to be? This could have a big impact. But I also think Jess is a pot stirrer, and she says that. Oh, I love drama. She says it later too, and I'm like, it's not very creative just to try to like cause trouble. And so to
Yeah.
claim like that it's fine feels also a little bit disingenuous.
I know we talked about this like when the actual event, the actual party, but it doesn't seem it feels like it was a little malicious
Hmm.
on, even if they informed Jen of what is like generally going to happen. It didn't seem very like an act from a supportive friend.
Yeah,
That's
they keep referring to it as a prank, and I think that's kind of accurate. But yeah, you're right. You're like, okay, when you play a prank, what should you have in mind?
I saw something from a psychologist that focuses on kids that was like, these are the things I try to teach my kid or kids. And one of the things that she said was to learn that there can be teasing that happens that hurts. And it's important to say, like, and this is, I'm paraphrasing, but like that teasing is hurting my feelings, and not basically not brush it off just because we were teasing. Well, that hurts my feelings. There's a difference
Hmm.
between we're in it together, we're joking, we're kind of giving each other a
I
hard
like
time.
to be teased.
Yeah, like I think that that can be a way that a lot of people bond and show their affection by kind of teasing each other. And then there can be a line where it's crossed and now it feels hurtful. And that's essentially what she was saying. Like she said something like, I think it was supposed to be like lighthearted and fun, and it wasn't. It felt disrespectful. And they were like, "Well, you knew it." But she's allowed to say, like, it landed more hurtful than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that they aren't owning that. And even if they're like, yeah, that wasn't our intention, I'm sorry that you felt that way, that's all they have to say is like, we were trying to
Yeah.
be funny and help Zach out, but the feeling is like it doesn't feel like they really care about Zach. That's the thing, they don't really like Zach, they don't care about Zach, so this is not an opportunity to help Zach redeem himself, which is what they were kind of saying,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
uh, but I don't think Jen handles this conversation
Yeah.
well.
It kind of comes out that Zach had even made the comment of like, we're going to go to Chippendales for exposure therapy. He might have planted the seed of idea for them to do, but it really does come down to like, do you know your friends? Do you kind of like understand people's boundaries and do you respect them?
So I made a comment. I wanted to ask your opinion on this. So the exposure therapy part. So if I were to reverse it, okay,
Hmm.
like a woman and man, but the man is going to a strip club. The woman freaks out and talks to the male spouse that same way, like the same, like the
You're
aggressive,
trash. Yeah.
you are dead to
Toxic.
me,
Yeah.
essentially. That the way we're responding to that is problematic. And so, but I think it's fair to maybe say, like, in this, like, scenario, like if the woman were saying, like, I feel kind of uncomfortable with you going to a strip club, but I trust you and I love you, and like, let's talk about what makes us both feel comfortable. I don't know, do we need to that, like, would an appropriate homework assignment be like, let's do exposure therapy, you go to the strip club with him? I'd be like, I don't know that, like, I need to maybe respond differently to him. And like, do I trust him? What is the root of my, like, is it an attachment issue? Like, what's the root of my, like, aggressive response? Do I need to go to the strip club for exposure therapy? I think that might actually make things worse. Like, I think if I like if situation and I'm at the strip club, I'm like, I'm not loving this. I'm still having a reaction. That doesn't mean that you don't have to, like, you can't trust your partner and whatnot. But I was
Yeah.
curious what you thought about the whole, like, exposure therapy. It's different. This is a
Yeah.
show. This is a strip club. It's a show. But I was trying to think of how helpful I feel like that assignment would be in this case.
I think when you do exposure therapy, you have to go in with the conviction that you shouldn't be bothered by the thing and you want to teach your body to agree to that.
Hmm.
So maybe that's where it comes in, like the preparation, the conversation you would have to have around whether or not it was helpful would have to identify like, yeah, is it an aspect of I don't know what's going on there and I picture this, and so if I went and saw what was going on, then I would know what was going on, right? Are you like a person who like needs to see the needle going in when you're, when you're or are you somebody who looks away? Like I don't know, but yeah, just to blanket sort of say like you should go to the strip club a little bit more. I would want to know more. What purpose would that serve for Zach? Does he need to see her getting ground upon and then go home and be like, "We're still in love"? Just be like, "Yeah, that's okay." Yeah, I'm not sure.
Or does he like this does feel like, does he need to go to the show and just kind of learn more about what the show is like, and it's generally benign, and I don't know, like, what is the
Yeah,
purpose?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, the idea of consent has come up a lot, and it's come up here.
Hmm.
And they're using that term and a ton. And it's just sort of interesting to me because they're using it, but like not fully addressing the use of the term consent and
Hmm.
like what that means for them and how they're experiencing that. Um, And I was sort of curious what your perspective was. So she was like, I didn't basically consent.
Hmm.
Like Jordan was literally grinding on me, and I didn't give consent for Jordan or this random male stripper to be grinding on me. I just kind of wanted, what do you think about that?
Well, I hadn't thought much about it because I do associate consent largely with sexual consent. It's weird, it's weird to be talking to the partner of the person who did it as if like I didn't give consent for you to have your husband do like are you thinking it should be between the two people? Are you thinking of it as sexual consent when you're saying this or are you
Yeah, like it's so when what's the guy's name? Was it Chase when he touched Demi's hip, and there's just it seems like this it's being thrown out a lot. Like I think there's like body safety boundaries that exist. Um, was she consenting for the dance thing when she sat in the chair on the stage? Like I don't know. I guess I'm curious about it feels so I want to say this and like maybe I don't know if this needs to be taken out. I kind of feel like it's weaponizing the word a little bit and I'm like
hmm,
having sort of internal um
hmm,
battle's a strong word, but this like internal push pull where I'm like, I mean, you're allowed to say, like, I don't want you touching me. Like, it doesn't have to be like some sexual act. If they're dancing on you and you don't want that, you should, like, that should, no, thank you. I don't want you near me. I don't want you to touch me. But, and so I'm not saying she's wrong in that way. Like, maybe she didn't consent to the dancing. And maybe it's not fair to be like, well, you got on stage, you knew that there was a Chippendale, so I would assume you knew what was going to happen. Like that feels maybe not fair either, but it feels like it's weaponizing the term in a way that I don't feel like is fair too. So I don't know. And I don't know if this is like also controversial, like what I'm saying, but
sure. Well, yeah, yeah. Certainly, I wouldn't want to downplay anybody's real experience of boundaries or sexual trauma or anything like that. I do think that it's probably easy, the way Zach did, to put the what Chase did to Demi and this in the same category of not as big a deal as it seemed.
I think the part that feels weird is when I think like the weaponizing part is like when she's like, I didn't consent to Jordan putting his little dick on me or like rubbing his little dick on me or whatever.
Yeah,
Like this
which
feels
is
like you're not because fair, if that happened, oh my gosh, yes, like that's a consent issue. But like, did
well,
that?
sure. I go here. Yeah, yes. That's a
Well,
good point. That's a good point. Because I was just thinking, like, if you go to a restaurant on your birthday and your friends tell the waiters and they stand you up, especially if you go to like Hooters or something like that, where they like stand you on a chair and they stuff your shirt with paper towel rolls, it's like, it's quite embarrassing and maybe even a little sexually suggestive at a place like Hooters. And if somebody was like, I didn't give consent to do that, I don't want that to happen, right? If I go out to eat on my birthday and they embarrass me, I actually don't like that. It feels online with that conversation. I didn't want to stand on a chair and be embarrassed. If she felt like Jordan had been like frotting on her, right? Like frauderism had occurred and she felt violated by that it would make sense if that's what she's saying. And the fact that she's like, he rubbed his little dick on me, which by the way is such an offensive jab at like Jess, like she's going on the attack there. But that's the part where I go back and it's not up to me to decide, I guess. But I do find myself wondering, like, does Jen feel a sexual encroachment, or does she just feel annoyed because of the marriage situation and the drama? And she still should get to say she did, right? When they came out
right.
dancing, she did this, which is should be to say don't do it, and then they did whatever. But I hear what you're saying. Like sometimes I think it's when people hear people overuse the word trauma or
Yes.
things like that and I don't think that you shouldn't use it or should use it, but I do think that there is an impact of like, oh, sometimes when some people use it in this way, it really feels like it dilutes the importance of this.
Maybe the issue is just the how she's talking about it because part of it feels like she's just trying to make a point
Yeah.
and not as much like she feels really violated. Like she's upset, she's unhappy, and so I guess that's like a distinction that I feel as a viewer is sort of important too, like that perspective, especially if
Mhm.
we're talking that way and it's hard to sort of read. I mean, otherwise everyone's sort of reading into it and you can either then say, oh, well, that she's being ridiculous or not, and that like that's not fair. And like that's definitely not what I'm trying to say, but it just was a little confusing as to how she really felt in terms of that
Yeah,
violation.
it is. Because if she really didn't want it to happen and he was rubbing his genitals on her, like that's sexual assault. And if she started to say, I was sexually assaulted, that would conjure up a lot of images that probably wouldn't fit with the narrative or their intention or even what I think really happened, but it could be accurate. And so it's tricky, I think. I think it's tricky because Jen's saying, I didn't like this. And Jesse's never saying, I'm sorry. She's always saying, you should have known. And I don't, and I, maybe that's a reasonable response, but they're never like saying sorry.
Well, and like, did Jesse or Jordan like really touch? You know how like some of the
Yeah,
dancing,
he
like
may not have.
and so I guess like that's part of because that's another like if there was touching in a way like that feels like an important conversation to have. But the part that I thought was very Gretchen Wiener when and it's been a while since I've seen Mean Girls, but when Gretchen starts to kind of lose it, you remember that movie, right?
I've seen it recently.
Oh, you have? There's like the part where she starts just spilling the secrets of Regina George.
Uh-huh.
And but she's just because she's feeling betrayed, she's feeling like left out. She's getting really upset. And I felt like when Jen was like, I know, like clearly they were all talking about this issue. She felt uncomfortable, no one's saying sorry. And then as she leaves, she's like, I know about your past. And if you're asking me to swing with you, the answer is no. And then she leaves. I was like, that feels like we are just unraveling and spiraling and we're just now I want to say something that's going to embarrass you and hurt you like
Yeah.
and
Let's
that
burn the bridge.
yes,
Yeah.
I don't know.
But it did. It's weird. If somebody says something like that to me, one is sure, if they tell a secret or something that embarrasses me, then I would feel horrified. But if I wasn't embarrassed, I would still care. I would be like, ooh, you just took the gloves off, right? Like you just decided to be my enemy. And that to me, I would have a reaction where I'd be like, F you, you know? So that was a choice. But
I
she might feel like they're already there. So, I'm not saying she shouldn't have. It was just funny.
I think too like if I were Jess and I had someone that was like your husband rubbed his small dick on me, I think I'd be like did he touch you? Like, I think I'd be like, did that happen? Like, because also, like, that's
Sure.
terrible. Like, obviously, it was meant to be also part of it was meant to be an insult, and that's why it's sort of hard to like the credibility piece of it feels like because you're just you're doing like a low blow. You're trying to jab.
Yeah, if it was upset, like he put his erection on me, you would say that.
Like what? Like, oh my gosh, like we need to talk about this. Or, but also I would at the very like jump, I'd be like, did you feel uncomfortable by the whole Chippendales thing? And I like don't want to
Yeah.
make you feel uncomfortable and I'm so sorry. So like that would be my response. But yeah, I think I'd be like, what? Oh my gosh. Do you think that happened? Like, did that happen? Like, I need to know.
Yeah. Instead, she was like, and you didn't like that? Like what? You should
Yeah.
have.
Mm-mm.
So in the next scene, Macy and Michaela are on their way somewhere, and Macy surprises Michaela with, I'm actually going to drop you off to talk to Whitney.
Uh-huh.
Which, if I didn't like Macy so much, I would feel like this was a dick move. But, Macy's trying to keep everybody together, and she's close with both of them. So maybe she feels actually entitled and positioned to actually do this. So whatever, she does it, and Macy doesn't, Michaela doesn't like it, but she still does it. So I think that probably shows how she feels maybe about Macy or what she's willing to do, or she recognizes she's on a show and it's part of it.
I thought this whole scene was interesting because it seemed like there was this whole issue that occurred last season that was not covered. And I don't know if it's that they edited it out, like it just was not there, or if the women never really actually or Michaela never really talked about it. Obviously, it's being brought up this season.
It felt like it added some context because she said we used to be best friends, or at least like super close friends, best friends. That actually, to me, answered a question I had, which is like, of all things, why did Whitney show up at her birthday party at the skating rink? But apparently they were closer than I had known, you know? Because she didn't go to Macy's thing, but she showed up at Michaela's birthday party at the end of the season one.
Yeah, but and Michaela was like, well, she didn't show up for me though. She wanted to talk to Macy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Would be super hurtful if it's like, you're my best friend, you're here, you're not even here for me. You want to just go talk to our other friend. I'd be mad. I would
Yeah.
not be happy about that.
Yeah. So Michaela is holding a grudge, and I don't know enough context to know if I have an opinion on whether or not it feels reasonable or not. But I was like, oh, that she's so hurt because this was somebody who she was closer to, and clearly the closer somebody becomes, the more painful a betrayal or the breaking of a friendship or something. So that made sense to me.
I also just felt like they didn't do a good job in this scene explaining like the backstory. Like I didn't feel like she did a really good job at explaining why she was hurt. And the video, I was just confused. So she said like she was struggling with her chronic health issues
Hmm.
and then and then what? Like so the video that she showed had this caption and it was like, my friends told me we were meeting at 5. I showed up 2 hours early and saw this. And it then was like this image of the girls taking a picture. And I was like, so you showed
Mm.
up
Did they?
2 hours earlier from the meetup time and they were all together doing something and then you felt left out. It sounded then like maybe she went up to Whitney and was like, hey, I feel left out because the next thing she says is like, well, and then Whitney gaslit me and flipped it by saying, "Oh, well, you're doing this to yourself." Like none of this was explained very well at all. And
It's true.
honestly, if I were in therapy, like if this were a patient of mine, I'd be like, we need to back up. Like I need you to help,
Hmm.
like fill in some of the gaps because I'm not following. Like, did you go to her and you told her that? And then she said, "Well, you're doing this to yourself." Was that in reference to your chronic health conditions? Like I'm not following what you're even talking about. And
Hmm.
so, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it isn't super clear to me. It was funny and sad that she really felt like I need a safe word. I need you to get me out of there. I don't want to do this. And then she muted her own phone. So Macy's out there like, I'll just wait, I guess.
Out.
And Michaela's in there with her code word sisterhood just in case, but if she uses it, then Macy can't hear
I thought that was funny. She said, I'm 3 sisterhoods deep. Why would you?
her. So I will say this. This was I had thoughts about this conversation. I thought Michaela was not being very receptive, right? I was like, okay, she's not receptive to this conversation. She's not going to make it easy. And what I thought was poetic justice was it felt like Michaela showed up the same way that Whitney showed up last season when Taylor tried to approach her and say, like, what's the deal? And Whitney was just like, I just don't want to be friends with you. I don't feel like you deserve it. I don't feel like it. You're owed an explanation. I'm just not going to engage with this. And that's what this feels like, Whitney, right? Like you have decided that you want to make up with Michaela, probably more so you can get in with mom talk because you see that she actually has more positional power with the group than you do. And it's the same thing that you did to Taylor, Michaela's doing to you, which is just like, I'm actually not interested in repair with you right now. And I
Mhm.
don't have to. And I don't want to. And I don't owe you an explanation. And that is so painful as the person who's like, I'm trying to do this. And that can feel so frustrating. But you're not entitled to somebody's like forgiveness or you're not entitled to somebody's friendship.
It's true. That is true. It's hard. Those are hard conversations. But yeah, I agree.
So I actually thought Michaela, well, if I were on Whitney's side, I would find Michaela very obtuse and, not reciprocating what I was trying to do. But it is what it is. She just didn't want to. It wasn't in the place. And she wasn't even like prepared for this meeting, apparently, right? It was sprung on her. So how well can I expect her to perform? And
Mhm.
in some ways, I think she performed well. She was like, I will be cordial with you in spaces where we share this business that we're doing together. And that's it, which I think is right. I'm not going to sit there and do mean girl stuff. I'm not going to sit and antagonize you. We'll see.
That is what Whitney is saying. You are, though, you're doing the videos. That's mean girl. That's antagonizing. And so Michaela's like, It's not. So I think that's like the impasse
What do you
that
think? Do you agree with that or not? She's saying, I'm posting them myself. You don't have to look, but we do know they're about her. Like, what are your thoughts?
I mean, it doesn't feel good. If I were Whitney, I wouldn't like that. I think I'd like to resolve this so that you don't feel the need to continue to post videos about me. But I guess if she's like, I don't have a desire to repair this and I'm going to keep doing what I want, you can't really do anything about it. You can't control it. It's just, okay. So that's it. Like I, you're at an impasse.
It reminds me of the Seinfeld episode when Kathy Griffin is making fun of Jerry in her act. And so then he keeps trying to talk to her, and then she adds it to her act. And it's
Yeah.
very frustrating, but you're right. It's that situation where you're like, people can talk about you, I guess, you know?
Doesn't feel good. I can't control it. I don't like it, but I've done everything I can to try to repair, and I guess, and that it just is what it is. I can't move
Yeah.
forward.
So disappointing for Macy, of course. I think Macy's disappointed that Michaela isn't more willing to because Macy just wants the group to get along, right? She wants good vibes when
Yeah.
they're working together, especially among the people she's closest to. So I think she's disappointed, but again, Macy's very, I think, sort of compassionate and understanding about people's processes. So very rare to see her like really heated or rejecting people.
Yeah, I agree.
If you watch the episode, Michaela, or if you watch the conversation between Whitney and Michaela, Michaela says, I'm watching Whitney cycle through all of her personalities. And I was like, ooh, I am seeing that. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. And I'm not saying Whitney's a monster or even different than a regular person here, but you can see it. You can see her negotiating her way in and taking different angles, and Michaela's sort of stonewalling, which she has the right to do. And it's interesting to see Whitney's like persona kind of shift subtly throughout her attempts.
Yeah, I feel like because they reference this later, I want maybe probably next episode, I think, but she's having a hard time regulating. That's sort of how I read it. Like she's like really trying to regulate, and in that attempt, she's trying to identify what's the best way to kind of get in and fix this to whatever degree I can. And none of it's working. So she is like pivoting where she can. And then she just becomes a little bit slightly dysregulated. A little.
Yeah. It's funny that I have a friend whose big power has always been to talk me into doing stuff.
Uh-huh.
And not necessarily bad stuff, but it's always been like, oh, I don't know. And then he's like, come on. And then I'm like, okay, like just that dynamic. And it's just how he is. And as we've gotten older, I'm less susceptible, I guess, because he'll be like, oh, we're hanging out today. Ditch your family and let's hang out tomorrow too. And I'll be like, no. And he'll just try. It's so interesting to watch somebody who's just like, I have to get my way and kind of like how they negotiate. And it felt similar to that, where sometimes I'm just like, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. He's so frustrated. Oh, give me one good reason. And I'm like, I don't really need to,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and so seeing Whitney try so hard, because none of that felt like Whitney cared about her relationship with Michaela, and none of it cared about or seemed like Whitney was taking accountability for how she hurt Michaela. It seemed like Whitney wanted her to stop posting videos and she wants to come back in Mom Talk, and she saw that this was like a necessary step. And so if those other things are true, I didn't see it. It wasn't communicated on the show.
Yeah, I think none of the women like care about each other that way, except for I felt like the episode in the past where Taylor and Miranda talked about their stuff, that felt the most genuine to me in terms of
Hmm.
they care about each other. They cared in the past very deeply, and they were trying to have an honest conversation. It felt, and it was the most I think that was the healthiest of the conversations
Yeah.
that I've seen thus far when it comes to interpersonal conflict.
Yeah. Yeah. This was my favorite religious, I won't even call it a Mormon moment, but a religious moment. Whitney's sitting in her interview and she opens her Bible. She quotes Ephesians 4:32, which says, And be ye kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God, for Christ's sake, hath forgiven you. And that's not happening, says Whitney. And to me, that was just the most Mormon thing, the most religious thing, the most Christian thing, the most everything of anybody, which is like, I didn't hear you quote Ephesians 4:32 last season, Whitney. Why now? And it's because people are so good at reading the scriptures and seeing the way they wish other people lived. People are so good at that. They're very bad at reading the scriptures and applying it to the way that they're living.
Yeah.
So, was she kind, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, even as God forgave her last year when Taylor was trying to hash it out with her? No. Put your
Yeah.
Bible away, Whitney. Put it
Yeah.
away.
Agreed. Agreed.
I laughed so hard. I mean, I don't know if I've ever heard anybody quote scripture in a way that felt like productive to me because it's always a lecture to you, not them. So, whatever.
I agree. Hmm. I agree.
But then we go on to another dissolving relationship, which is Taylor and Dakota. So, how did you feel about the Taylor and Dakota breakup?
I felt sad. I felt sad. I thought Dakota said something that felt really insightful. That he said something along the lines of like every pain point that Taylor has, I activate.
Yeah.
Or wants to be the best dad that he can. And I don't know. I felt sad for both of them.
It is sad because they love each other and have a good connection, like a good enough connection sexually. Like there's a lot, I think, that connects them in ways where they care a lot about each other, which is why the breakup, I'm sure, has been so difficult for Taylor to make a decision. I thought what she said, I mean, maybe it was written in a book or maybe a therapist said it to her, but she said nothing changes if nothing changes. And I was like, that's one of those cliche lines that's actually like, really pertinent in this situation, which is we're not changing and the things that aren't changing because of that are not good. We're fighting too much. So Dakota, I think, was surprised, sad, let down. Taylor probably was too hard for her to go ahead and finally do this thing that everybody's been saying. You got to make the decision. So it was, in some ways, I was like, it's good that the conversation is happening. But yeah, it's sadder and better when somebody doesn't fly off the handle and, call you names and whatever at the end of it. It's better, but it's also like, okay, now we're breaking up with somebody who's treating me nice. It's hard.
Yeah, I did feel the only thing I will say about comment on Taylor's approach there when he was crying and he said like I being apart, something like being apart from their son, doing the co-parenting thing, that sounds really hard. And she just was like, "Yeah, I know it's hard. Yeah." Like 'cause she's doing it already with her first husband, but felt a little, I don't know. I couldn't put my finger on what was going on there because it seemed like, was she thinking like you don't think about like this is what I do with the other, like my ex partner.
Oh,
I didn't know where she was coming from because it seemed, I think a compassionate response would be, it is, yeah, I know from experience it's really hard, but it was almost like like a little defensive, like, yeah, it is hard, I know. And he's like crying, and so I just wasn't, I
yeah.
was like, what's happening here in this moment?
I that might be really what happened. I didn't take it that way initially. She said, "Yeah, but it's part of co-parenting," I think is her exact response right then. And to me, it felt similar to the way I've seen Zach argue, and a lot of them argue in different ways, which is when you have an objective to your argument, which is we need to break up or whatever, and then somebody brings up, but what about this? You can hold that, like you said, in the compassionate response. And I think everybody would do well to get better at this, right? In their relationships, is to have that compassionate response of like, I know that sucks, but I still think it's the good, or just I know that sucks, right? But I think that there's a pretty natural way that people argue, and especially Taylor and her family, the way she's probably been conditioned to argue is like you just have to hold your point and you have to get rid of the the things that people say. So I took it a little like that, where he's like, "This sucks so much. That's the hardest part." And maybe her sort of being like, "Don't be weak. We got to break up." Yep, that's part of co-parenting. Just sort of like maybe
Yep,
brushing it aside. Which I
it
don't
is.
know if that's completely different than what you said, but that I did take it that way of like, we can't be hearing about this. And Dakota clarified, which is like, yeah, but it's the first time for me,
Yeah.
which was a good way to sort of say like, hear me though. And it's true. It's very sad. It's so sad to think of. I take for granted that I'm around my kiddo all the time, and this was that moment when he's like, "I'm going to go home to a different thing," and my baby who still wakes up in the night and that I help with will now like I just won't be part of that. And I was like, "Gosh, that would be hard. It'd be great to sleep through the night." But that father part where you're like, I'm involved and now I'm less involved, that's a loss for sure.
Have I told you about the weird conflict? Not, it's not real conflict. The weird, awkward relationship that I'm having with my neighbor. Did I tell you this? I
Oh,
co-parent.
that's right.
And she comments, so if it's not my weekend with my child, like we have a really good relationship. And so I'll be like, hey, you guys want to come over, like hang out for the day? Like we could set out like the little bounce house or do like the backyard activities. And he's like generally like, yeah, sure, that sounds fun. I'm doing it because I want to see my child and we get along well. So it's not an issue
Hmm.
for us to do that. And so yeah, my neighbor's always like, well, he's over an awful lot. And I'm like, I know, but I'm like, you don't know what it's like. She has two girls, but I'm like, you don't know what it's like to say goodbye for a weekend to your child. It's this weird, like I find myself because I had my kiddo for the past 7 days, which is not our co-parenting schedule, but he was out of town and I was exhausted. And like more than anything, I wanted a break. But I don't want to break in that she actually leaves the house. Like I want someone to come over and I like take a bath or something. I
Right. Yeah.
want you to leave because the moment she leaves, I'm like, I'm so sad you're gone. I was exhausted before, but I'm so sad that you're gone. And it's a
Yeah.
terrible feeling. And so I get that, but I feel like other people.
What is your neighbors, what are they implying?
I don't know because here's the thing. Like I will say things like, "Well, yeah, we're getting along well, and I miss seeing my child, and so the more time, if we're able to do it in a way that's healthy, like we'll do family events, and then I'm like, why am I explaining this to you? I don't owe you any explanation. So like one time, so there was because we were considering sending her to this private school that the neighbor sends her kids to. And I decided, nope, this is not aligned with my values. I want my child to go somewhere else, good public school. And so I went across the street. I don't remember if I told you this part. Did I tell you this part?
Mm-mm.
I went across the street and I was like, hey, how's it going? And my kiddo was with me and her girls were outside who are older. They're like in fifth and sixth grade. And I was like, I have bad news. And she's like, you're back with your ex. And I was like, oh, but I'm glad you think that's bad news. Okay. No, my kiddo's not going to the private school that your girls go to. She was like, oh. And I'm like, can we stop every single time? Like every single time. She's like, well, he's over an awful lot. I'm always like, man, are they back together? Anyway, I don't even remember why I got off on that. Oh, well, I guess because she has two kids, and I was like, I don't understand how you can't understand that rationale of like if we get along and I can spend more time with her on my off time, like that as a
Yeah.
that to me should resonate. That should make sense. I would think you would understand that, but it's quite perplexing to you still. So anyway.
So the final scene is combination Whitney's baby shower and the hibachi backyard dinner hosted by Jess. I mean, Whitney seems aware of like I know people might not come because of both our relationships and things I didn't come to last season, so she's sort of aware of it, I think. Um, I like that Taylor went because Taylor again made the most inroads with Whitney even in season two. And so she came. Macy came, of course, because Macy's a good friend. Jen came because she's better friends with Macy right now than the other two. And then Miranda came. I thought it was funny. Whitney made a little joke about like, if somebody didn't come, I have my mom call her, making fun
Yeah.
of Taylor's mom calling her. So that was funny and, fine, I guess.
I thought that was funny. I also thought it was funny that she was like, I'm having baby bunnies so that people won't ask to hold my actual baby.
That's actually,
A great idea. I was
yeah.
like,
I mean, if you really don't want people holding your baby and you got the money to rent some bunnies, I was like, all right.
fluffy bunnies. Yeah, everyone was holding the bunnies. Like you get that soft, like little baby. Yeah.
And as much as I like Taylor, she was like, I don't like bunnies. I had a moment where I was like, what?
I know you like
Nobody's
bunnies.
asking you to raise the bunny, but you just don't like them enough to pet one?
Okay.
Some people don't like animals. It's fine. The hibachi situation is fun. I think that sounds like a great night. I'd do a hibachi grill. Sounds great.
Yeah, I honestly, when I was watching it, I was like, I kind of want hibachi now.
Yeah, I'll catch a shrimp on the forehead. But they kind of talk about Jesse's sort of like, she threw the swinging thing in my face, which I've done that in the past. On the one hand, Jess is like, we need openness about everything. And I'm like, all right, well, there's a little more story about you, but it did seem sort of like random and more than anything. She was like, she was backed into a corner and started throwing daggers, which I think is an accurate interpretation. But I love how she's like, and I just don't want friends like that. It's like I don't want friends who, when I back them into a corner, they're upset by it. So when I read, I was like, sorry, Jen is not a good friend, and I'm like, all right,
Yeah. Which I have a lot of comments next episode about this.
me too.
Yeah. But yes, I agree.
This is funny too. Jen's kind of doing the same thing. We're going back and forth, and Taylor's like, "Well, what's your issue with Demi then?" Taylor's just kind of like non-judgmentally keeping up on it, and Jess brings up like when she was in Europe, this and that, and it's another strange thing. Like, why do you care what Demi did on a televised show?
Jen,
Whenever,
Jen said it.
yeah, Jen said it. And then she's like, I guess one kissed her on the cheek. Like she brings it up like it's scandal, and I find that just sort of weird misdirection that they keep bringing up some of these things that nobody cares about. And I don't know if nobody should, but I never saw the Vanderpump Villa episode, but I'm like, it was televised. Demi clearly feels more comfortable with a little bit of like flirting in the context. Her husband clearly understands the context and doesn't seem to care. Maybe I don't know, right? I don't know, but it seems weird that Jen keeps bringing it up like it's a scandal.
Yeah, I agree. It's like she's really stretching. I feel like, I mean, sure, you could make judgments, I guess, if you were to observe like a friend. I think I have like I know someone that was talking about because their neighborhood's super gossipy. It's really
Hmm.
unhealthy. And she'll like share stories with me about her neighbors and honestly that are like the John Hamm show, Your Friends and Neighbors. They're all very wealthy and bored, frankly. Anyway, because I feel
Hmm.
like on these things, like you just don't have much going on. But anyway, so they're like so and so. They all like went to some restaurant, and I don't know. There was a limo, but they were all commenting about one of neighbor, the female neighbors who was married, was like sitting on the lap of another male neighbor who was married, and they weren't married to each other, and they were like all like gossiping about that. And I mean, I feel like, yeah, so like there can be some element of like, I mean, they do things that maybe I wouldn't do. I don't think my partner would love if I did that. Sure. Um, is it super scandalous? No, probably not. And I sort of felt
Hmm.
like that here too. Like, okay, we're maybe making judgments, but what are we really saying? I don't know.
Yeah.
You were
Yeah.
flirty, how dare you?
This is interesting because on the one hand, for a reality TV show, it's probably like helpful or good. But as the two groups are talking about each other, I thought it was funny that they brought up the confession on Sinner Sunday that
Yeah.
is Brett apparently hooked up while they were out of town. I'll be curious to see how this continues to be talked about, but it's interesting because I guess at first glance I kind of don't believe it, or I think there's like a lot of reasons why it shouldn't be real news. Like we said, they're on a very popular show with a very popular website. Anyone in the world could write anything about anything, and then they could watch it play out. Like I could go on there and be like, I hooked up with Jordan, and then it would be on the show, and I'd be like, I wrote that in this thing. So to me, I'm like, I'll believe anything, but at the same time, it's interesting how much it's being talked about when I'm like, we have one anonymous thing that doesn't
Yeah.
feel very credible.
I guess like before the first season was filmed, I believe more of those entries than
Yeah,
I do after the first season aired. Because
yeah,
yeah, exactly what you're describing. Like before, what would be the motive? Not that there still could be motivation
sure,
to wreak
yeah,
havoc amongst these people's lives, but
right,
with a show, like it feels there is that motivation might be higher. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm less inclined to believe this. But I do think Demi's response, I mean, I find all of the reactions to be interesting.
I thought it was also interesting that Taylor in this moment was sort of like, no, I do think that Demi kind of overreacted, not to defend Chase, but kind of overreacted. And I was like, there's that too. Taylor just likes Chase as much as anyone, but was sort of like, Demi's doing this. And I'm like, there it is, a little bit of that. I have to say to you, though, when we were filming the episode where Chase laid hands on Demi, I think I was like, 100% like, this is absurd. This is absurd. She has no right to say that. And then and you had your point of view and we talked about it on the episode, but as I was editing the episode, you were convincing me as I went along. I was like, I need to listen to more what Sean was saying here, because because as much as I've sort of had that vibe of just like, oh, Demi, you're ridiculous, you made all these really good points. People shouldn't feel entitled to touch you. That you could still feel upset about that. You can still ask your husband to beat somebody up for it, like all of those things. So I just have to say that I was just like, no, no, and then as I was editing, I was like, no, yeah, oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
I think
Took me a while to hear it.
the semantics, I think the way, and I think that's what we both landed on, right? Like it was like the way she was like, when you say someone laid hands on me, it sounds different than someone touched me.
Somebody poked me and he was a jerk about it. Go kick his ass.
Yeah, someone like tapped me or like yeah, touched me. Like that feels someone laid hands on me, like reads as aggressive. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Anyway,
I'm
I thought I
glad.
would
Thank you for hearing that.
I'd tell you that. Anything else for this episode for you?
Oh yeah, Layla was the one who wrote
Oh
on,
yeah.
yeah, that Jen is fake, which I was like, oh man. So in my notes, I'm taking notes as I'm watching the episode, and it was the Pilates scene when Jesse and Demi were like, who wrote the who do you think wrote that? And they're like, I don't know. And then I put in parentheses like wink wink, I don't know.
I
But then
thought so
later, I was like,
too.
oh, it was Layla. Okay, I was not expecting that.
I thought so too. I was like, ooh, is this misdirection? Because it still feels like they did it, but I guess it was Layla.
I also felt like Layla doesn't actually, I could be wrong. I feel like she doesn't really care that much, but she's like, I don't have much of a storyline. So here we go.
Could
Like,
be. Yeah. Yeah. She's like, I don't know how long it's going to take me to reach uh, climax. So I gotta have other things. I gotta have other.
I said you're fake, yes. And I'd say it to her face. Did she say something like that? I think she made some comment. I don't know. I don't remember. But she's not saying because we were all shocked that it was Layla. But
No.
anyway.
Yeah. Kind of odd.
Oh, one more thing I want to say before we wrap up. So Demi is talking. Oh God. So Demi is talking about the trip that they're going to go on. And she's like, we're all, arguing or we're all having these issues. And she's like, it's going to be a massive bloodbath. Do you remember this? She
Yeah.
said, I'm going to be packing like extra tampons or like extra large tampons. And I was like, I don't think that's what that means. Like that, like, I don't think a bloodbath means like my period is heavy. Like, I think it means by myself watching this, taking notes, and I was like, oh, like that was loud. No one's around me. I was like, oh gosh.
You want to think about how bad it's going to get. I'm packing tampons.
To me, that is the right yes, the massive bloodbath does not mean it's not related to one's menstruation.
It's not a heavy flow.
Killing each other, like that's sort of the content. But
In which
clean
case you
that
need
mess up
other
with
things.
what?
You need bandages. I'm just picturing her as a war nurse who's like, I need more tampons. They're bleeding out.
I didn't like that. I didn't.
No,
That was my last comment on this
the
episode.
bloodbath that's to come.
Yes.
Well, yes, this was an interesting episode. Looking forward to the next one as they prepare for pickleball girls' night or girls' outing, whatever it is. It's going to be great.
All right. Until next time.